Hi everyone, I'm Vivian Pham, and my poem Fruit, Flower, Fawn won 4th place at the Bankstown Poetry Slam. I got a garlic press, and I'm very proud of it. My poem is about remembering what it was like to be a 14-year-old girl and remembering the things that, all the ways I found life so boring, but also all the things that I really, really desired. And looking back, I kind of almost want to just, when you look back, you want to be kinder to yourself and you want to tell yourself that everything's going to be okay, but also to keep yourself safe. So when I think back to my 14-year-old self, that's why I wrote this poem. It was about all the things that I desired that were really not good for you, not good for 14-year-old girls. But when you're in that space at that age, you don't really know yet, but you keep getting warnings and you're not sure why you're getting these warnings from people older than you who are kind of prophesizing your destruction or something like that. So that's what I really wanted to write about and speak to, just to say it's going to be okay. Yeah. The reason that I wrote specifically to my 14-year-old self is because I guess I'm 24 now, and so I think it felt kind of whole to speak back to who I was 10 years ago. That kind of felt whole, and it felt a bit full circle. But also, for me personally, 2014 and being a 14-year-old was a specific time in my life where everything kind of crashed down and everything went wrong, and it felt like there was no way to go forward. So to be on the other side of that, to have lived through that 10 years past that, felt quite big for me. So I really wanted to write something to honor that. I think also 13 seen as an unlucky number, and the number 4 is also seen as unlucky, and I kind of felt that moving through those ages, that this is just an unlucky time in my life. But it wasn't really, but to have survived, not to have survived that, but to have gone through that and to be glad for everything that's happened to you, even the things that are very difficult and the things that you have to heal from. It can make you a better person if you choose to do the right things with it. The reason that I performed was because it was the last slam of that year, and I was like, let me just put my name down, and if I don't get picked, that's fine, but let me try to write a poem to honor something, to honor who I was 10 years ago, and to, if nothing happens, then I just have that poem. And I just wanted to do something that really scared me, because Bankstown Poetry Slam is such an important place to me. I've performed, sort of, or spoken poems aloud in different spaces before, but that never counted as a performance to me. Don't know why. I just never counted it. This was like the big leagues to me, the BPS was, because I've seen so many people that I really respect and admire perform there. So I wanted to write something and to say it aloud in front of a room of people that I knew would hold it dear and kind of keep it safe, even though it terrified me before the year ended. You won't believe me yet, but one day you'll miss the girl you were. I mean the girl right now, toes squirming against the seam of your socks, wondering what life would be like if you had your belly button pierced, is already halfway gone. I wrote this part like that because I wanted to, I think, embody the physicality of it. When I think about that time in my life, I was always wearing socks, because I was always like coming like to and from school, and it was always like sweaty socks. So when I think about a specific white ankle socks. It just reminds me of, and the texture of that and the feeling of being in those sweaty socks, it reminds me of school a lot. And I was obsessed throughout high school, throughout my teenage years with getting a belly button piercing, because I would watch lots of videos of Britney Spears. And I thought that if you got a belly button piercing, then it would like transform your entire body and make you desirable, but still, I could go on about Britney Spears, but I thought that a belly button piercing would make you like really grown up and pretty. So that's why I really liked it. I'm going to keep going now. What I mean is that most 14-year-olds have already spent half those years trying to disappear. And not always in a Sylvia Plath way. I mean in the most uninspiring suburban way that girls like us can go from growing to gone. Like watching the sun go down the street in Sefton and the neighbors who don't know each other during the day. Every night their houses hold hands and head into the dark, together. That sort of way. I think in this stanza I'm just thinking about suburbia, how it feels to grow up in Sefton, where I spent like most of my life, most of the beginning of my life I spent in Sefton. And it was always such a strange place for me, that specific street, because it felt it was just a normal street, but it felt really gothic to me because I lived in a strict family and we weren't allowed out. So even looking at the other houses in the street, imagining them as figures that hold hands and head into the dark together every night was just kind of shows to me the way that your imagination acts out as a kid when you're growing up in a really boring place, and you kind of imagine danger that might not be there, and you might not see the danger that's actually there. But the tone is supposed to be a bit, what's this? Scary, gloomy, yeah. I think the Sylvia Plath way, it's making light of something, I guess that's maybe you shouldn't make light of, but her poetry and also her gruesome death, this heightened sense of disappearance or of like a feminine contemplation, the feminine contemplation of herself. I'm kind of juxtaposing that's been her version, the Sylvia Plath's version of female sadness, to what it feels like to have similar emotions, but not kind of have the language for that because you grow up in a specific place, or you can't kind of draw the line between and make the connections between what you're feeling and this kind of famed sense of sadness. Mm-hmm. Like you still sitting here, hands tucked under the back of sweaty knees. If there is one thing you want more than anything, it is more secrets. You want more than your 1 square meter of mystery behind the granny flat, where your neighbor's roses climb over like knights in crimson armor, where you go with hands wrinkled and peeled dry from hot dishwater, and finally, no one can find you here. This is where you sit and seethe and wait for love to come knocking on the fence. Just the whole image of the hiding in a specific corner of the house, behind the granny flat, where neighbors' roses are climbing over the fence, and you're just sitting and waiting, and you've just come out of doing a bunch of chores, and you're just catching your breath. That was the doorway into the poem for me. It was this image that made me remember all the things that I kind of wished for when I was 14 years old, and that wanting to disappear and wanting to get away and wanting to just escape and feel something different to my life at home was that image of just waiting for a new life to begin was the beginning of the poem for me. But then everything else that I wrote was around that. So I wanted another kind of beginning, and I wanted to bring it to a hopeful ending. But yeah, this was the beginning. No one's told you yet that sometimes disappearing is a side effect of waiting to be noticed. And you've waited so long, so patiently to be looked at, adored exactly the way you've been taught to dream of, that you're going opaque. And no one's told you anything you have to beg on your hands and knees for is not yours. They've only warned you will be the cause of your own ruin. They don't give it to you straight, though. They only ever allude to it. I wrote this section of the poem because I sometimes wonder how different a lot of girls and a lot of women's life would be if we didn't see so many representations of romance on screen and in books, and we weren't taught to strive for that as kind of one of the only ways that a woman or a girl can be whole, is by being valued or seen as valuable enough to be married or something like that, and to be appreciated in this romantic, in the romantic sense. I think that being taught to dream that at a young age can actually be really harmful for women and for girls. It's strange to consider because, as a writer or as a lifelong yearner and thinker of romantic things, that is, romance and love is one of the ideals that you are constantly striving for and constantly wanting to write about and give space in your art and in your work. But yeah, I do wonder how different a life can turn out if you don't know that to dream of, and also you don't put yourself in dangerous situations looking for that. I think maybe that particular line, disappearing is a side effect of waiting to be noticed, got a big reaction, is maybe because people relate to that as well. I mean, as humans, as people living in amongst each other, we always want to be recognized and validated. If we're good at something, if we're striving for something, we want to be told, like, this struggle is worth it, and you're good at this, or I see you doing this. And I think love, or romantic love, and wanting to be seen in that particular light is a specific kind of validation. And I think it's a specific, kind of validation that says you are worthy of being loved and you are desired by someone else. So I think maybe that want has led a lot of people to feel smaller than they actually are. Instead of love kind of filling you up and making you feel big, the desire for it can make you feel like you don't have enough and that you aren't enough to kind of be worth receiving it. So it makes me wonder, how many metaphors can a 14-year-old be? Taught all that you are is a flower to be plucked, a pomegranate bound to be split open, a pearl for the taking. You are a deer, it seems, and every man who enters your life is a 4-wheel drive, an accident waiting to happen. I wrote this stanza because I think in a lot of different cultures, you get the same sense of being born a girl is having inherently something you have to protect and something that can be taken away from you, but you don't really know what it is. What's being taken away from you when you kind of enter a relationship or when you engage in intimacy is this thing that's kind of constantly being held over your head, I think. I remember watching a Korean drama or something when I was really young with my parents or with just my mom. And if there's, as there often was in dramas back then, if there was a scene where a girl was drunk and she got taken advantage of, my mom would say, oh, she wasn't looking after it, so it got stolen from her. And I never knew what it was. What is this thing that gets stolen from you? So that is just one instance of growing up as a girl, but there's so many others, and you see your female elders talk about other girls and ruined girls, and yeah, everything is so catastrophic when they're talking about girls and what will happen to a girl if she doesn't defend her honor and things like that. So I grew up really scared of that kind of stuff, and it wasn't anything it was a fear that I don't think we should grow up with. Like, there's a reason, of course, that we should protect our girls, but when you introduce that fear in a way that it lives inside her and it festers inside her, I think that's what I'm getting at in this poem and in this specific stanza. Yeah. I think that line, how many metaphors can a 14-year-old girl be, comes from being in a household where there's lots of proverbs about being the ideal daughter and being the ideal wife and being the ideal just girl. There are so many different things that you have to aspire to and ways of portraying that in a proverb. So I found that when I was, as a 14-year-old, I felt like I was trying to be all these things, all these different things, and it really confuses you because you're told that you're only worthy of family love if you can achieve all these different ideals. So that's where that line comes from. So it happens. Even then, you'll survive. You are not forbidden fruit, flower, or fawn. You are a girl, and getting swallowed whole might taste at first like love, but you will survive it, and more than that, you'll fit the sourness, the saliva, the ashes of the worst thing that ever happened to you inside a poem. And the poem will be sweeter than you expect, like strawberry shortcake after a lifetime of eating shit. Let it live under your tongue, the poem. Let it be a reminder of how long it can take to speak to yourself in a voice you can trust. So in my writing, when I write about in novels or plays or films, I kind of, maybe because I'm at the beginning of my writing career, I really hate pushing characters to the limit and having really bad things happen to them. That's just my personal thing as a writer. I think I care about these characters that I've crafted, so I don't want anything too bad to happen to them. And with theater, for example, when there's like a violent scene, I often have it happen off stage because I don't want to have to describe it, or I don't want audiences to have to see it. So this is my way of doing that in a poem as well. It just that that really brief sentence that's so it happens, alluding to the thing that's, and a man is an accident waiting to happen, and then saying, and so it happens, not giving that any space in the poem, not giving it any breathing room or detail or description. That's my way of saying that bad things happen, but we don't have to kind of mine it, and we don't have to make the whole poem be about the source of the trauma. Because often it's not really, because I definitely understand why a lot of young writers want to go straight to like the really scary thing or straight to the really painful thing and kind of suck it for all it's worth and really juice it out. I think I've definitely done that in my personal stuff that I don't show people, but in something that I want to share with other people, I want to be mindful and not really drag up the worst thing that's ever happened and adorn it and kind of make everyone sit through it. I think the point of this poem was to say these bad things can happen, but who are you? Who do you choose to be each time you survive something is more what it's about. I know you understand. You are so used to metaphors. You have been so many. You will live another day, and when the time comes, you will choose to have another meaning. I did have a few conversations with people. I think they were all just really, I think they really liked the wordplay more than anything. I think they liked the, someone asked me, are you only 14? I was like, that is so nice. That was the best conversation I had. And then a few people, not just girls, like a few other, men came up to me and were had similar experiences or knew what it was like to kind of grow up with this specter. So it was really nice. And people really like that line that you guys like, the side effect line. My personal favorite, the one that I came up with and I was like, wow, that's actually quite nice, was the you are a fawn, it seems, and every man that enters your life is a four-wheel drive. I was like, whoa. I really like the balance of fawn, which is such a delicate, natural thing, and then a four-wheel drive, which carries such destruction in the way that we think about it. But no, it was the other one. You will live another day, and when the time comes, you will choose to have another meaning.